Welcome, you're watching the NWR Mining Resources series. I'm joined by Tesoro Resources. Tesoro is an Australian-based company with exploration stage gold and copper assets in Chile, focused on acquiring, developing high-grade gold and copper assets that have potential to be district-scale mining projects. On the line, joining us today is Zeff Reeves, who is the Managing Director of Tesoro Resources. If you have any questions for Zeff as he works his way through the presentation, please feel free to drop them in the chat function. Over to you, Zeff.
Thanks, Laura, and thanks for everybody for joining NWR's conference, and thanks to NWR for giving us the opportunity to talk again about progress at El Zorro, Tesoro's key focus in Chile. El Zorro is Chile's newest gold discovery and is rapidly expanding and beginning to tick all the boxes to become a future mining operation. This cover photo is a bit of an overview of the project area. You can see it's in the Atacama Desert. We have no vegetation, driest place on earth, and all on Crown land, no landowners or anything like that. So it makes it very easy for us to get about and do our work. The usual disclaimer, I'll just skip through that. So just a quick overview map of El Zorro and where we're located. This project's located approximately 800 kilometres north of the capital city of Chile, Santiago, but it sits right in the middle of a world-class mining jurisdiction. And the preliminary work that we've done at a deposit called Ternera, which sits in the middle of our concessions, which are these red outlines here, and Ternera is the orange diamond. All the preliminary work that we've done to date, which includes a Maiden resource estimate, initial engineering studies that we're starting to pull together, and metallurgical test work, are all pointing towards Ternera being a fairly straightforward, uncomplicated project sitting in this world-class jurisdiction. So we're close to the coast. We potentially have access to seawater, being only 15 kilometres from the coast. Our workforce stays in the port city of Caldera, which is only 57 kilometres away by road down the Pan American Highway. And the whole region is supported by the large mining city of Copiapó, which is 130 kilometres away by road. So all the major mining companies, including some of the companies that you can see labelled on this map, all have offices in Copiapó, assay laboratories, drilling contractors, mining contractors, and the like. But in our region, as you can see, multiple major mining operations within a very close vicinity to Ternera. Yamana Gold have actually just pegged a large swathe of land to the west of the El Zorro Gold Project, which is interesting that we're starting to look at, see some activity from some of the mid-tiers and majors in our region regarding the gold prospectivity. We would like to think off the back of our Ternera discovery. But to the north, we've got the Monteverde copper mine, which is run by Mitsubishi, the Santo Domingo copper mine run by Capstone Mining, who are also building or have a proposed port permitted, which is only 15 kilometres directly west of Ternera. So we're talking to them about potentially working with them on access to that port. Goldfields have just had the large Salares Norte coal project permitted. That's going to be a 300,000 ounce per year producing mine. The Inga de Oro Codelco copper mine, Kinross's Maricunga up in the high Andes, and Lundin Mining's Candelaria are all major mining projects that have been permitted in this region. So really is a world-class destination in terms of mining jurisdiction. So far at El Zorro, we've defined a 661,000 ounce gold resource. We've been drilling with 6 rigs drilling 24/7 since announcing that resource, and we've got aiming to have an additional upgrade of that resource before the end of this year. We see some significant expansion in that resource based on some of the drill results that we've recently seen and announced. But importantly, we've got a 555 square kilometre permit area. We've only drilled 2% of that. So we think this is an emerging gold district. It's an intrusive related gold system. These things haven't been described in Chile before. And we had the first mover advantage, and we pegged what we think is the most prospective ground for this style of mineralisation in this region. And we're certainly seeing some of the rocks in the wider concession area that we think are related to gold mineralisation. We'll continue to explore that ground package as time goes on. To date, we've really only drilled one hole that has not returned a significant intercept. So hugely successful exploration model and campaign. We continue to produce some really solid drill results out of Tenera, and we're now testing some of the other targets outside of Tenera. And as at the end of last quarter, we were in a strong cash position, 13.7 million Aussie dollars in the bank. So just quickly, shares on issue currently just over 600 million. Currently trading in the 10 to 11 cent range. It gives the company a market cap of around 60 to 65 million. Currently, the top 20 own about 51% of the company, with board and management making up about 18% of that. And we see our top 20 has been very supportive over the development of El Zorro and the progress of the company since listing in February 2020. You'll see there a table of our maiden mineral resource numbers. So a main headline number of 661,000 ounces, but also importantly at a higher cut-off grade, at a 0.5 gram cut-off grade, 15.4 million tonnes at about a 1.1 gram per tonne grade for 540,000 ounces. So I'll talk a little bit more on that shortly, but certainly we see a nice higher grade component to this ore body. Just quickly on board and management, Jeff McNamara and myself and Sergio Riba are the founders of the company. We founded it as a private company back in 2017. John Toll from Azure Capital is our chairman, and we've made recent appointments to our board to further bolster the capabilities on the board, which were with the appointment of Christy Young and Linton Putland, who both are from a mining engineering background. And Linton's actually been appointed as an executive director of mining and development, and he's leading the team to carry out mining studies, scoping studies, and commence our permitting works and so on, as we really do see this project moving along quite quickly into development. So on this slide is a section through our model. So our block model, maiden resource estimate. As I mentioned, that's 661,000 ounces. So that's shown on this section in the pale pink background, and a number of different coloured pit shells around that resource at different gold prices. You can see from those pit shells that really we don't lose too many ounces as that gold price comes down. So what it's telling us is that this is an outcropping ore body. There's a lot of ounces contained in the shallow parts of the ore body, and the more we drill, the bigger it gets. So we're starting to fill in those gaps, and really this project's starting to tick all the boxes to make it a very simple, straightforward project in terms of its mining methodology. The geology is starting to really come together and filling up this model with grade, as well as major extensions that we're finding, which I'll talk to shortly. And with that outcropping nature, it really does lend itself to a particularly profitable start to a mine with very high metallurgical recoveries. We announced some met samples, some met results yesterday, and that's extremely positive, and it's going to have a material difference or a material benefit to the development of this project. So what that met work showed us is that the tails grade is extremely low. So it's an order of magnitude lower than what you would see in the Eastern Goldfields, for example. And at 200 microns, I would challenge any of our listeners to go and find a gold deposit in the eastern goldfields of Western Australia, or anywhere in Western Australia for that matter, that is grinding ore to 200 microns and obtaining a 94% recovery. That 94% recovery had over a 40% gravity recovery. So this is essentially grinding it to a grind size similar to beach sand and getting those excellent high recoveries on a very straightforward metallurgical process. So what that allows us to do is really pull down that cut-off grade. We've utilised a 0.3 cut-off grade at the moment, but it really means that we can start to look at taking all of the material that occurs within that pit shell and pushing it through the mill and still making money out of it. It also lends itself to a very simple flow sheet, which would be typically a single stage crushing, potential for SAG milling, which has got a major power consumption advantage with the gravity and cyanide leaching as finish to recover the gold. So that is a major benefit to this project, on top of the fact that this is outcropping, it's close to the coast, and all those other key attributes that we're seeing is all pointing towards a straightforward, simple project with potential for a very low operating cost. Currently, with those logistical advantages, we're seeing some very low power costs that could be utilised from a power line nearby. And again, we're close to a port and workforce. So this is all ticking all those boxes, and we'll take all of that information and feed it into a scoping study, which we'd hope to get completed off the back of a expanded resource calculation towards the end of this year. So just looking at the project overall and the enormous exploration potential, as I said, we've only drilled less than 2% of the permit area to date, and with high success, 99% success rate with the drill bit. So our geological team have done a fantastic job in unravelling that exploration model, and that exploration model is based around the intrusive related gold system. Essentially, where we find the intrusive rocks, where they hit by the right structures, we're seeing gold mineralisation. So going back to that cover photo, our geos can walk up to the rocks, see them at the surface, but no vegetation or soil to deal with. So it makes direct detecting of gold deposits very, I wouldn't say easy, but certainly advantageous to a lot of other places in the world where you have vegetation and heavily weathered material and so on. So we're not chasing geochemical anomalies. We can see the geology and we know what we're looking for. Tenera itself is open in all directions. We're particularly seeing some really nice drill results coming out of the southern parts of the deposit. This western section of the deposit here, which wasn't included in the Maiden resource announcement, we've had some exceptional results out of there recently, but so far we've defined this deposit over 1 kilometre of strike. It's up to 750 metres wide in places, drilled down to 400 metres and remains open in all directions. But I guess what we're really excited about is the potential in the other targets on the property and adjacent to Tenera, particularly Tenera East, where we've now completed about 6 holes. Drone Hill, we've just completed another 5 holes at Drone Hill, and now we're starting to do some drilling in the southern parts of Torre Blanco. So all of those holes that were drilled in Tenera East and Drone Hill all hit intercepts of the favourable host rocks for gold. They look to be what we would consider normally mineralised if they were occurring in the main Tenera deposit. We're waiting for assays for all of those. Well, if we start to get some nice hits out in some of these areas, it will certainly make a material change to the potential scale at Tenera. And certainly it's ticking all the boxes so far. So we've got 6 rigs on site at the moment, drilling 24/7 with the main aim to complete some more infill drilling at Tenera and convert more of our resource into an indicated category, as well as further expand the deposit. As well as those rigs I mentioned, that we've got 2 rigs doing the other target drilling up at Toro, and both of those rigs are currently at Toro Blanco. So we're optimistic we'll pick up more mineralisation outside of Tenera. Just a couple of photos on some recent activity, and again, just pointing to the fact that this is basically bare rock sticking out of the ground. So it allows our geologists to see the rocks, sample them directly, which is as good as a drill hole, and directly identify gold mineralisation at surface. So all of those targets I've mentioned, they've all had some surface sampling on them. They've all got gold mineralisation at surface in rock. So now we go back to the basic geology, refine the drill targets and drill them. So that's where they're up to in the exploration program at the moment. So some recent exploration highlights, I guess, demonstrating the expansion of the resource as we put more drilling into the deposit. We recently announced some of these holes, 176, 170, for example. They've got thick, high-grade zones through them that sit well outside the existing mineral maiden resource estimate. So you can see that they're going to add considerable ounces. And we've picked up a whole bunch of mineralisation, particularly out in this western structure here. That has now been drilled over 750 metres of strike as well, and is starting to look like it will add quite a few ounces to the next resource upgrade. And essentially, the more we're drilling, the more we're seeing this deposit expand. So the other important thing to point out is that there is a really nice high-grade core or cores to this, so clustering around these north-south faults, and that's demonstrated by some of these drill results, like 21 metres at 5.26. So when we look at these in space and bump up the cut-off grade and to say over a gram, those zones in those north-south faults, they hang together. They're showing some really nice sweet spots. They outcrop at surface. It's all, as I said, pointing to a very straightforward, simple mining operation from the geology, the mining and the metallurgy. So just having a look at the scale of this project and the scale of the targets that we're defining. We've now got gold mineralisation identified at surface all the way from Toro Gordo, Tenera deposit in the middle of this, all the way up to Toro Blanco. That's over 3 kilometres of strike. We've drilled at Tenera East, which sits in the hanging wall of the main Tenera deposit, and we've had some very positive first drill results out of there. Drone Hill sits in the footwall of Tenera. We're hopeful that we'll pick up some additional mineralisation there. As I mentioned, we've hit the right rocks in the drilling. We're waiting for assays on all of those. And the team's just started the first holes at Toro Blanco, where those host rocks of Tenera have been mapped all the way up to the north. We've seen some anomalous gold at surface there. And we're starting to get that drilling done now, and we're hopeful to pick up some major extensions up there. Now, if Toro Blanco comes in, that's essentially a major step change to the scale of this project. So that will mean that Tenera is then a continuous ore body all the way from the southern edge of it, where it hits Toro Gordo, all the way up to Toro Blanco. So you're looking at a strike length of probably just over 2 kilometres for that part of it. So we're pretty optimistic on that. We like what we see at the surface, and we're hopeful that the drill bit will turn up some more gold. So it's a fairly linear progression for us from now and through to the commencement of a feasibility study, which we'd hope to kick off early next year. But essentially, the team's focused at the moment on expanding the resource and providing a resource update towards the end of this year. That'll be done with a 50,000 metre drill program, which we're in the midst of at the moment. We've just released that MET test work that was completed, showing those excellent recoveries at very coarse grind sizes. And all that information will feed into an initial scoping study report, also off the back of that resource update towards the end of the year. We'll just see that roll into a feasibility study commencing next year. The met test work that we're doing at the moment is still ongoing. It's very detailed. We've identified 11 ore types. So all that detailed work on each of those ore types will be compiled to develop the final flow sheet and so on for plugging into a feasibility. So it really is a feasibility study level of work that we're doing there at the moment. But as we can see, we don't think we're going to stop drilling at Tenera. No, I mean, the more we drill, the bigger this is getting. So we'll continue to drill and build that resource and run in conjunction with feasibility study and our environmental approvals, which we've actually already got underway. And also in parallel with all of that, we'll be doing some work on some of our other targets at Tenera, East Drone Hill and Toro Blanco, where we're seeing material come out of the drill holes now, and we're optimistic we'll pick up some additional resources outside of Tenera. So very busy and productive 6 to 12 months coming up for us, and we certainly are well on the pathway to delivering a project that has got the potential to be a future mine. So that's a summary of where we're at, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks for that, Zeff. We do have a few questions for you. So someone's asking, as a percentage out of 100% of the resource, what are you expecting to convert to the indicated range at the end of the year?
Look, that's probably a little bit early to answer that question yet. We need to take a good look at it in terms of grade continuity and so on once the final block model's done. So we would hope to get at least half of it up into the indicated though, you know, in an ideal situation. But again, it's a little bit early to make a call on that at this stage.
Fair enough. And why is heap leaching for low grade not considered to complement CIL plant higher grade feed?
Yeah, I think that you know, it's a good question. Certainly in the right part of the world to do heap leaching with very low rainfall and so on. But looking at the high recoveries that we get at a very coarse grind size, we certainly, you know, up around 94% at 200 microns, whereas a heap leach operation might only get maybe 70, 75% recovery. And so we believe that this allows us to, one, have a larger mining inventory because we are able to lower the cutoff grade and recover more gold essentially. So we see that as the logical pathway for the project at this point in time.
Does the material leach without grinding?
No, you'll need to still crush it. And we are running, so as part of that detailed work that we're doing, we are running some leach work at just crushed material at various crush sizes. But at this stage, given that high gravity recovery that we're seeing and the good response at a coarse grind size, it's looking as though we'll go down a conventional crush grind cyanide pathway with this project.
And you gave a great drilling update on the exploration projects Tenera East, Drone Hill and Toro Blanco, and we can see the roadmap in front of us there. I understand that you've recently started with Toro Blanco, and if that comes in, that will represent, as you said, a major step change in the project. So what can we expect in terms of timing with that area in particular? When can we expect another update?
Yeah, so we'll continue to release drill results as they come to hand, particularly out of Tenera. So those holes at Toro Blanco are currently being drilled as we speak, that we haven't completed. We've got 2 rigs there at the moment drilling, so expect the core to be completed, those holes to be completed within the next week or so. So look, depending on how they look, we'd probably like to get them fast-tracked through our system and into the lab as quickly as possible, and so we can make some decisions around what we do there. So, look, I think in an ideal world, probably 4 to 6 weeks